Mandragora was always an important world, a hub for the Necron armies that did battle on the eastern rim of the galaxy. It was built as a shining, gilded world of glorious mausoleums and towering sepulchres, the physical manifestation of the Necrontyr obsession with death. When the war in heaven ended, Mandragora's stasis crypts were filled with some of the finest warriors of the Necron dynasties. The planet's defenses were second to none, as befitted a world of its status, and it survived the Great Sleep intact. So did Mandragora emerge from hibernation with vast legions at its disposal, a situation its new pharaoh, Imotekh, was quick to exploit by immediately launching a campaign to conquer dozens of nearby core worlds. The Sautekh Dynasty. The Implacable Tempest. The Sautekh Dynasty is known for two things above all: the merciless efficiency with which they disassemble the armies of their foes, and the Byzantine hierarchy that governs them. With every year the Sautekh absorb, annex or conquer new worlds and lesser dynasties, each fresh acquisition made a shining cog in their silvery machinery of destruction. Like a steel claw bursting from the heart of the galaxy, the Sautekh Dynasty emerged from the Great Sleep in a storm of death and destruction. Unified under the iron will of Imotekh the Stormlord, the Sautekh wield a power and purpose like no other dynasty. From their crown world of Mandragora, the implacable legions of Imotekh spread out across the stars, bringing more and more worlds under the rule of the Pharaoh. Even other Necron dynasties bowed down to the power of the Sautekh, joining the ranks of the Stormlord's armies. Overlord Nazar of the Sekemtar, Celestium Emrit of the Horth, and Overlord Cesaron of the Arin Marok have all pledged themselves to Imotech's cause, hungry for a piece of the dominion he is carving from the stars. Resplendent in burnished silver and cold emerald, the legions of the Sautekh have brought to heel scores of worlds across the eastern fringe. By the light of burning civilizations, Imotech's armies march relentlessly on, driven by the Stormlord's dreams of conquest and reunification. It is Imotech's will that his people be forged anew, and that he rise to rule all Necrons. At first, the Pharaoh's desire was born of necessity, as he woke to find his tomb world racked by infighting. Rather than pick sides, the Stormlord dispatched his rivals and seized power for himself. Now, as the influence of the Sautekh waxes, so too does that of Imotekh, and the former Nemesis sees himself as the architect of the Necrons' return to primacy. As the most numerous of the risen Necron dynasties, it is the Sautekh that have been encountered most frequently by other races. To the Imperium, the dynasty has become synonymous with the Necrons, and it is erroneously believed by many that they all represent the alien race as a whole, with all other dynasties being offshoots of the Sautekh. The Tau see the dynasty as representatives of an emergent power, and seek as ever to form allegiances before resorting to all-out war. To the Eldari, the Stormlord represents the greatest threat posed by the Necrons, for they know that should he realize his ambitions, the horrors of a bygone age will once more return to the galaxy. Imotekh himself understands that the enemies of the Sautekh are many and powerful, perhaps too many to defeat with force of arms alone. As such, the master strategist uses other weapons to bring the galaxy under his control. As he sweeps across the stars, a shadow of terror passes before him. The worlds he plans to conquer are racked by violent storms and scorched by unnatural lightning. Armies that march out to meet the Stormlord disappear into his shadow, and so the legend of terror grows. On their dark reputation alone have systems surrendered to the Sautekh, preferring a life as slaves of the Necrons to annihilation at the hands of their legions. So it is that the relentless expansion of the Sautekh continues, and Imotekh takes another step towards total domination. The Sautekh have the following dynastic attributes. They have as their most treasured heirloom the abyssal staff. To quote, To succumb to the swirling ebon mist called forth from an abyssal staff is to be swallowed by impenetrable madness. Legend has it that Sautekh cryptechs have embedded each of these artifacts with a tiny sliver of the necrodermis of the deceiver, allowing the bearer to summon wisps of shadow imbued with the star god's anarchic insanity. These emanations drive victims to tear at their flesh and gouge out their eyes, gibbering uncontrollably, or open fire on their allies. The Sautekh Dynasty differ from even other Necrons in that they are masters of the dynastic codes of relentless advance. Nothing can halt the inexorable march of the Sautekh. These disdainful conquerors will stop at nothing to retake their ancient domain, obliterating any who dare defy them in a storm of death and destruction. Imotekh the Stormlord, Pharaon of the Sautekh Dynasty. Nemesor Imotekh awoke from the great sleep to find his tomb world in disarray. Mandragora had survived the eons mostly intact, only to fall foul of unrestrained ambition. The Crown World's Pharaon had been one of the few to perish during hibernation, and, once they had quashed immediate alien threats, the remaining nobles had moved to seize the throne. A decade of internecine civil war followed, with no faction able to gain victory. During this time, the reification of high-ranking nobles was suspended, as neither side wished to awaken further competitors. Had the situation continued, Imotekh would likely have slumbered until the civil war had torn Mandragora apart. As it was, one of the pretenders struck upon the idea of recruiting the famous general to his cause. With such a supporter in Thrall, victory could not fail to be his. However, when Imotekh awoke, he was both enraged and appalled at the anarchy about him. Realizing that Mandragora's only hope of restoration lay in the civil war ending as swiftly as possible, he refused to support either faction. Instead, Imotekh marshaled an army of his own, destroyed the chief antagonists, and claimed Mandragora's throne for himself. The newly crowned Pharaon thereafter forbade any form of infighting within his realm, declaring such activities to be a waste of time, effort, and resource. This law was ill-observed at first, but swiftly became the norm once Imotekh had proven his willingness to make terminal examples of those who flouted his authority. Between this rule of iron and a swift string of military successes against nearby worlds, Imotekh's position soon became unassailable. Indeed, to this day his only true rival is the famed Nemesor Zandrekh of the crown world of Gidrim. But the old general's loyalty is as unquestionable as his wits are addled, so he is of little threat. Imotekh is a grand strategist, perhaps the most accomplished the galaxy has ever known. His campaigns operate not only across worlds, but across entire star systems and sectors. When Imotekh launches an attack, it is impossible to discern if it is the main thrust of his strategy, or simply a decoy raid, crafted to bleed enemy reinforcements away from a battle yet to come. All such assaults are carefully weighted to overwhelm forces already in place, requiring the foe to either sacrifice their troops or reinforce them. And Imotekh's plans are always many stages ahead, set to take advantage of either course. Indeed, the Stormlord's battle plans are incredibly versatile, seeded with feint attacks, counter-strategies, and other contingencies enacted automatically should certain circumstances be triggered or thresholds crossed. To outside observers, there is something almost mystical to Imotekh's methodology, for how else could he so flawlessly anticipate the unseen? Yet in truth, there is nothing more at play here than the careful application of probabilities and logic, combined with a canny understanding of the foe's mindset. So impeccable are the logical patterns behind the Stormlord's strategies that the only way a foe can truly gain meaningful advantage is to abandon all logic themselves, something that most enemies find incredibly difficult to do. But orcish anarchy achieves as naturally as breathing. Thus does the Stormlord hate orcs, above all of the lesser races of the galaxy, for, No matter how hard he tries, he rarely wins a lasting victory over the rabblesome greenskins. Yet lasting victories against the orcs there must be, for Imotech's goal is nothing less than to wipe them away from the face of the galaxy. The Stormlord is unshakable in his belief that only when the galaxy is washed clean with the blood of the inferior beings will Necron dominance begin anew. As Pharaoh of the Sautekh, Imotekh can draw upon incredible resource, for the armies of the entire dynasty are at his requisition at need. Yet the Stormlord knows that the foe, all other sentient life, is too numerous for the victory to be won through force of arms alone. Thus for Imotekh, terror is a weapon as potent as any in the Necron arsenal, and one he employs to full effect. His armies advance under the cover of storm-blackened skies, emerald lightning bolts arcing down from heavy clouds to wreak carnage amongst the foe. Enemy armies that advance into the shadow of the storm are simply swallowed up, cut off from all contact whilst the battle lasts. Any warriors that escape from the Maelstrom's clutches do so only to sow panic, fear and dismay amongst their comrades. Worse, some such survivors are implanted with blood-swarm nanoscarabs, which gore warm-scented acts as an irresistible beacon for roaming packs of flayed ones. If the Stormlord has one weakness, it is a prideful need to display his superiority over those enemy commanders foolish enough to stand against him. High-ranking enemies are often set free upon their defeat so that they will have to live with the knowledge of their inadequacy. This is a lesson invariably reinforced by physical mutilation, a severed limb normally being the favoured method. Yet with every battle, these surviving foes learn a little more of the Stormlord's methods, and the best of them only become more determined to see his campaigns ended once and for all. High Marshal Helbrecht of the Black Templars in particular has run the Stormlord close on more than one occasion, though victory has thus far escaped his grasp. The fact that Imotekh suffers from such a personal form of martial hubris stands in stark contrast to the analytical and emotionless detachment he displays when planning and conducting campaigns. It is possible that status-induced eccentricity is to blame, but for which trait? Is Imotekh a master strategist whose engrammatic damage spurs him to seek personal glory? Or is he a bellicose warrior granted strategic genius through an accident or fate? In the end, it does not matter. If Imotech's defeat comes, it is surely not to be at the hands of a superior strategist, but rather at the hands of a more accomplished warrior. And there will be many opportunities for such a downfall. Imotech's domain is growing at a rate unparalleled amongst the Necron dynasties. Over 100 tomb worlds lie under his regal command, and 5 times as many alien-held planets pay direct or indirect tribute. The number of alien civilizations Imotekh has destroyed during his campaigns cannot be easily counted. Such a realm is as nothing when compared to the galaxy-spanning Imperium or the Necron dynasties at the height of their glory, but is nonetheless impressive for the work of mere centuries. The rapid expansion of Imotech's dynasty has now come crashing violently into the domain of other star-spanning empires. On Macragge, reports of Necron activity along Ultramar's northern borders have reached the attention of Marneus Calgar. Craftworld Iyanden also faces danger from the Sautekh legions, as great a threat as the continued Tyranid menace and the demonic invasions that are now pouring from the Great Rift. The long advance upon the Tau Empire has also come to destructive fruition, with Imotech's invasion fleets tearing into the territories of the younger race. As new systems are subdued by the Sautekh Dynasty, so too are more tomb worlds brought into Imotech's fold, growing his armies as more slumbering warriors are awakened. Yet these are only the earliest rumblings of the Stormlord's tempest. Another fine victory over the crew under the Sautek Oberon. It seems strange to me that the enemy generals saw fit to lose so many wild beasts upon the field of battle. Their so-called tactics become more desperate and barbaric by the day. So long as we stand tall, old friend, we shall avail them naught. Onwards! Nemesaur Zandrekh to Vargard Oberon, following the defeat of Tyranid Splinter Fleet Morgau. Nemesaur Zandrekh stared dolefully at the seething tide of greenskins that was tumbling over the canyon edge opposite. Some of the armored brutes died on impact, with the Necron warriors firing up at them from the bottom of the gulch. Many more struck axe first, their crunching impact causing the Necrons to phase out by the score. "These separatists are insane," said Zandrekh, with a chattering sigh of exasperation. "They were supposed to be trapped at the edge of the cliff and not to voluntarily jump over it. Our fine plan lies in tatters, Oberon." The hulking Vargard said nothing, for his emerald gaze was on the skies. There was a sudden roar, and a trio of orcs hurtled upon smoking jetpacks, bellowing as they fired their primitive pistols at the Nemesaur. Oberon blinked from existence to reappear in the path of the bullets. They ricocheted from the bodyguard's impervious metal body armor without harm. The orc troops thundered down, brandishing their axes. Oberon's scythe flashed once, twice, 3 times. 6 bleeding lumps of orc flesh fell to the ground nearby. Their blood spattered the Nemesaur, but he did not notice, for he was intent on the battle in the gulch. "Nothing for it, send in the monoliths, and have the night sides bring in the reserve phalanxes in a classic Ektos overlap. We can still be in time for the feast." Nemesaur Zandrekh and Vargard Oberon, Grand High Masters of Gidrim, noble lords of the Eastern Fringe. Nemesaur Zandrekh was once counted amongst the greatest generals in the Necron dynasties. By his campaigns of conquest did the world of Gidrim rise, from ruling a small and insignificant planet on the fringes of the galaxy, to the iron-handed governance of a dozen star systems. Even now, Gidrim has been subsumed into the Sautek Dynasty. Zandrekh is numbered amongst the mightiest of heroes. It is a reputation well deserved, for Gidrim is one of the most expansionist of the recently awoken crown worlds, and Zandrekh's armies are an ever-present peril upon the galaxy's eastern fringe. For all his military genius, Zandrekh does not see reality as it is. His mind suffered damage during the Great Sleep, and as a consequence he is trapped deep in the past, in the wars of succession that racked his corner of the dynasties. In his mind, he fights these campaigns still as a creature of flesh and blood, crushing rebellious kings and bringing their dominions back into the fold. He does not see armies of orcs, Eldrai, or humans, but hosts of rebellious kinsmen battling to sunder his beloved dynasties. As such, Zandrekh is one of the few Necron overlords to employ the full protocols of honorable war against all encroachers. Where others see aliens, he sees only Necrontyr. He disdains the use of death marks, assassin wraiths, and other strategies forbidden by the codes of battle. Not that his subordinates have any such compunction. Wherever possible, Zandrekh ensures that enemy commanders are captured, not killed, and thereafter treated as honorable prisoners, much to the outraged consternation of Zandrekh's royal court. Indeed, there are many lords in Zandrekh's royal court who would dearly love to see the old general removed from power, for they judge that his adrift perceptions greatly outweigh his feats of battle. However, as befits his station, Zandrekh has formidable defences against regicide. His personal sepulchre is heavily woven with traps. His personal household retinue boasts 3 entire legions of Lich Guard, and he even employs 80 food tasters, though it has been countless millennia since any morsel passed his lips. Yet Zandrekh has one defense greater than all others, his aide and protector, Vargard Oberon. Oberon served as Zandrekh's Vargard in their very first campaign, an undignified but hugely successful series of skirmishes in the swamps of Yama, and has stood steadfast at his side ever since, both on the field of battle and off it. Unlike his master, Oberon is very much aware of the changes wrought upon their existence. but has long since abandoned any attempt to awaken Zandrekh to reality. Whatever the fault in his master's mind, the damage lies too deep. So, like any dedicated servant, Oberon attends to all the loose ends created by Zandrekh's eccentricity, chief of which are seeing to it that honoured prisoners are killed whilst trying to escape, and that upstart lords of the royal court are either silenced or disposed of. Oberon's instincts for Gidrim's politics are every bit as finely tuned as Zandrekh's are for battle. It is quite impossible for any plot to mature without word of it reaching Oberon, at which point he takes action to ensure it dies. The exact method depends greatly on what Oberon considers to have the greatest impact. A public trial by combat for the chief plotter is invariably Oberon's favoured method. His skill with a blade, legendary long before biotransference, has decayed little with the passing millennia. Sometimes, however, Oberon deems the quiet terror of a conspirator's disappearance to have a more enduring effect. Regardless of method, Oberon has proven his supremacy hundreds of times over, yet every few decades another upstart noble foolishly chances his arm against the overlord of Gidrim who, for his part, is content to leave the Vanguard to his work. On many other worlds, Necron or otherwise, Oberon would be considered the true power behind the throne, yet his loyalty to Zandrekh is total and completely without guile. He seeks no reward beyond continued service, and has never displayed an iota of desire to rule through his master. On campaign, Zandrekh and Oberon have proven to be an almost undefeatable combination. Zandrekh seldom lowers himself to personal combat, but instead wields as a weapon the battlefield acumen that somehow remains undimmed by his faltering memory. Under his gaze, the Necron armies of Gidrim react almost instantaneously to counter enemy strategies, shifting between aggressive and defensive postures at a moment's notice. With a few carefully chosen words of command, outflanking foes are isolated and crushed, enemy assault waves dispersed, and fire support positions obliterated. Such is Zandrekh's crystal-perfect reading of the flow of battle that even the enemy's experienced veterans often seem like raw and fumbling recruits, as their tactic is anticipated and their every skill countered. For his part, Oberon fights in the front lines, wielding his war scythe with a precision to be expected of a warrior who counts his campaigns by the 1,000. Yet no matter how distant he is, Oberon always keeps close watch on Zandrekh. His responsibilities as bodyguard outweigh any other considerations. Should Zandrekh be threatened, Oberon always returns to his master's side in a shadowy flicker of energy. His Ghostwalk mantle is at all times locked to Nemesor's homing algorithm. It can teleport him and those nearby with utter reliability, allowing him to intervene in no time. It is well that Oberon is so dedicated, for few lords of Gidrim are eager to fight alongside their Nemesor. Some simply cannot tolerate Zandrekh's constant stream of reminiscence to battles fought long ago, relevant to the campaign at hand, though those recollections always are. For others, Zandrekh's damaged mind is a constant reminder of the fate that might one day be theirs, should need dictate they enter stasis sleep once more. None of them sees that such damage has doubtless already been wrought, and they are, in truth, just as blind to their own involuntary idiosyncrasies as Zandrekh is to his own. It speaks much to Zandrekh's skill, and perhaps more crucially, those of Oberon, that despite the peculiarities in his tactics and his strict adherence to the Triarch's ancient codes of honor, he remains one of Imotekh's finest generals. Together, Zandrekh and Oberon form a bulwark against the teeming hordes of disorder that would encroach upon the Sautekh Dynasty. And so, gentle listener, we draw it all together. The Sautekh are the most numerous and powerful of the Necron dynasties that have now fully awoken, led by Imotekh, a better strategist than Hannibal Barca or Fabius Maximus, a better tactician than Gaius Julius Caesar or Marius, a better field commander than Alexander. None. can hold a candle to Imotekh. He was fighting wars before the Emperor was a twinkle in the mind of Ka. He is a commander from an age of unfettered war. He has fought against the Catan and Eldorei thought constructs and the Great Old Ones. He has architected the destruction of races and civilization, and he has witnessed the ending of gods. He has ordered millions to mete out death to trillions. Imotekh is a being from a different time, working on an entirely grander scale to the beings who now call themselves generals. He makes the Primarchs and even the Emperor alike look like boys. He makes the likes of Eldred, Vecht and Uriel Merkarth look like whelps still staring wide-eyed at the beauty and tragedy of the stars that he once ruled. He is the Grand Strategos. He is the end of nations and the death of worlds. He is Imotekh the Storm Lord. And as things stand, he could well be the most dangerous being in the galaxy. Gentle listener, I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. If you have enjoyed my introduction, then please consider liking and subscribing, and perhaps, just perhaps, suggesting what areas of lore you would like covered next.